My name is Bridget, and at 34 years old, I never thought I would be telling this story as a widow. Just 3 months ago, I buried my husband Adam, the man I loved for more than a decade. His death was sudden, a brain aneurysm that stole him from me without warning, leaving me hollow, broken, and desperate for air that no longer felt worth breathing. I thought grief was the worst pain I would ever know, but I was wrong. Because only days after his funeral at a party, I should never have forced myself to attend, my own sister shattered what was left of my world. She stood in her backyard, cradling her 1-year-old son, and told me no, told everyone that the child I had loved like my own nephew was actually Adam's. Then, with a smirk of triumph, she waved a piece of paper in the air, a supposed will claiming half of my home, the home Adam and I had poured our lives into. I remember standing there frozen, my body cold, even under the afternoon sun. Guests gasped. My parents sat stiff and pale, and yet I almost laughed. The audacity, the cruelty, the sheer impossibility of her words struck me harder than the grief already crushing my chest. I held it together that day, though I wanted to scream, to tear down every balloon and streamer that celebrated a lie. Instead, I asked to see the will. I examined the shaky signature, the clumsy phrasing, and tucked my rage behind a mask of calm. I told her we'd discuss it later, and walked out, leaving the whispers and stares behind me. In the silence of my car, I finally broke. Laughter and sobs came together, spilling down my cheeks in bitter waves. Because Cassandra, my sister, didn't know the truth. Adam couldn't possibly have fathered her child. Our story had begun so beautifully. I met Adam 12 years ago at a charity auction. I was helping organize the event, arranging the silent auction tables, when I noticed him bidding again and again on a painting I had been quietly admiring all night. It was a watercolor of the Boston skyline, at sunset, oranges and purples bleeding into the harbor. When the auction closed, he walked straight to me, painting in hand, and said, "I think this belongs with you." That was Adam, thoughtful, observant, impossibly kind. I fell fast. Within 8 months, he was proposing by the harbor, the skyline glowing behind us. We built a life in a Victorian home in Beacon Hill. It stretched us financially, but Adam had just made partner at his firm, and I was finding my footing as an interior designer. The house needed work, but together we made it our sanctuary, room by room, dream by dream. We imagined children filling the garden with laughter, but after years of IVF heartbreak and quiet drives home from yet another failed procedure, those dreams faded. Adam held my hand through it all. "You and me," he whispered once on the porch swing. "That is enough." And somehow I believed him. We found other ways to fill our life: travel, work, friends, little joys. And yet there was always Cassandra. My younger sister, 4 years behind me, with her easy beauty and restless charm. Where I built stability, she chased chaos, drifting through jobs, men, and excuses our parents never stopped making for her. She was the wild child, the one who demanded attention, while I quietly worked to hold my world together. When she announced her pregnancy at Thanksgiving, I forced myself to smile, even as jealousy burned inside me. After all I had endured, all the tears Adam and I had cried over empty cribs and lost hope, Cassandra, who had mocked my desire for children, was suddenly weeping about miracles at the dinner table. I swallowed my bitterness and knitted her baby a blanket. When Lucas was born, I stepped into the role of doting aunt. I rocked him, soothed him, even kept him overnight so Cassandra could sleep. Adam kept a distance I chalked up to our infertility pain. Now I see it differently. Now I know what weighed on him. Because years before Lucas was conceived, Adam had confided something to me. My sister had crossed a line. While I was on a work call one evening, she had made a pass at him, comments about how lucky I was, suggestions that he deserved more. He told me everything, and we decided to quietly create distance. But Cassandra didn't stop. She lingered, flirted, sent late-night texts. Adam rejected her every time. And then came his surgery, a procedure that left him unable to father a child, a fact we kept private, tucked away with medical records and legal documentation. Adam, ever cautious, even updated his will properly, leaving everything to me. He anticipated that Cassandra might someday try to cause trouble. He was right. So when she stood in her backyard, claiming Lucas was Adam's son, waving her forged document like a weapon, she had no idea that the foundation of her lie was already crumbling. My grief had stripped me raw, but beneath that pain lived the strength Adam left me. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just betrayal. It was war. I woke the next morning with my resolve hardened. Grief still clung to me like a second skin, but beneath it pulsed something else: clarity. Adam had prepared me for this in ways that even I hadn't fully understood until now. He had left me tools, foresight, and above all, his unwavering trust. Cassandra thought she could twist his memory to serve her desperation, but she underestimated the one thing Adam and I had always shared: truth. I drove straight to the bank, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The manager greeted me with solemn kindness, his eyes soft with sympathy as he guided me to the vault. I opened the safety deposit box Adam and I had sealed away years earlier, our private shield against chaos. Inside were the documents he had carefully placed there: his notarized will, medical records proving his vasectomy years before Lucas's birth, his journal detailing Cassandra's inappropriate advances, and even printed text messages she had once sent him. At the very bottom lay a sealed envelope with my name in his handwriting. I held it for a long moment, afraid to break the seal, afraid of the flood of Adam's voice reaching me through paper and ink. Finally, with shaking fingers, I opened it. "My dearest Bridget," it began. His words blurred as tears filled my eyes. He told me that if I was reading the letter, it meant the worst had happened. He confessed he had tried to prepare for every possibility, not because he was paranoid, but because he knew Cassandra's capacity for destruction. He urged me to protect myself, to use the documents wisely, and reminded me of the love that would never die even if he could no longer stand by my side. I pressed the letter to my chest and wept. His foresight, his love, his protection, they reached me even through death. Cassandra thought she had the upper hand, but she didn't know Adam. She didn't know me. That same afternoon, I met with James Wilson, Adam's old mentor and attorney. His office smelled faintly of leather and old books, the walls lined with case histories that whispered of battles won and lost. He listened with grave attention as I explained Cassandra's public claim, sliding the forged will across his desk. He barely glanced at it before shaking his head. "Amateur work," he said, his voice low with disdain. "This would never stand in court. But the fact she attempted it, that's serious." I laid out Adam's true will, the medical records, the journal. James adjusted his glasses, nodding slowly. Adam was nothing if not thorough. These records alone destroy her story. But we need to know why she would risk something so reckless. Fraud of this nature doesn't happen without desperation. He called in Frank Delaney, a private investigator with the bearing of an old Boston cop, broad shoulders, tired eyes, and an accent that clipped every vowel. Frank listened to my account, his pen scratching across a yellow legal pad. "Give me a few days," he said. "If she's pulling a stunt like this, she's backed into a corner." When Frank returned 3 days later, the truth landed like a second betrayal. Cassandra was drowning in debt, over $75,000 spread across credit cards, loans, and medical bills from Lucas's heart surgery. She was months behind on rent and facing eviction. Tyler, Lucas's father, had abandoned them not long after the birth, sending only scraps of support while starting a new life across the country. Worse still, Frank had found the messages, texts between Cassandra and her friend Jenna. Words that sliced deeper than knives. "Adam's death is terrible, but maybe it's my chance. That house is worth at least $800K. If I play this right, I'll finally get what I deserve. My friend can fake the will. Bridget's had her perfect life long enough. Time I get my share." I felt my stomach twist, bile rising in my throat as I read the words. This wasn't a slip, a mistake born of grief. This was premeditated cruelty planned while I was still crying myself to sleep in an empty bed. Frank slid another file across the table, Tyler's record. Domestic violence charges. A warrant for unpaid child support from a different child. A man who left wreckage everywhere he went. My heart ached for Lucas, innocent in all of this, trapped between a desperate mother and an absent father. James folded his hands and looked at me. You have two choices: press charges and let the law take its course, or confront her privately with leverage strong enough to force a different path. I sat in silence, Adam's letter echoing in my mind. Compassion does not mean weakness, but justice doesn't always have to look like punishment. Lucas didn't deserve to lose his mother to prison, but I didn't deserve to carry Cassandra's betrayal unchallenged. I went home that night and called my therapist, Dr. Chen. In her soft, steady presence, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the rustle of potted leaves, I let everything spill out. The rage, the hurt, the fear. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice raw. She's my sister, but she's also my enemy. Dr. Chen listened, then spoke words that anchored me. Compassion does not mean allowing yourself to be victimized. You can care about your nephew. You can acknowledge your sister's pain. But you must also draw boundaries strong enough to protect yourself. Both things can be true. And so I decided. I would face Cassandra head-on. She thought she was ready for war, but she hadn't prepared for the truth. The following morning I called Cassandra. My voice was steady, almost detached, as though the grief and betrayal had crystallized into something sharper. We need to talk about the will, I said. Come to my house tomorrow at 2. Just you. Leave Lucas at home. There was a pause, then her smug tone slipped through the receiver. I knew you'd come around. I'll be there. The hours before her arrival stretched taut, every tick of the clock pulling at my nerves. I prepared carefully, documents spread neatly on the coffee table, water glasses ready, and a recorder sitting between two chairs. James had warned me that Massachusetts required two-party consent, so I would do this openly with nothing to hide. At precisely 2, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Cassandra, polished and poised, her hair freshly styled, her dress crisp as if she were walking into victory. She had no idea. Come in, I said, ushering her to the living room. She glanced at the recorder but sat without comment. I hope you don't mind, I began, pressing the button. I'd like to record this conversation. It's best for both of us to have a record. Her smile faltered slightly, but she nodded. Sure, whatever makes you comfortable. I folded my hands in my lap, studying her face. Before we discuss the will, I'd like to hear your version. What exactly are you claiming happened between you and Adam? She didn't hesitate. Her voice was smooth, rehearsed. She spun her story with practiced sincerity: the supposed affair, the secret meetings at a downtown hotel, Adam's alleged confessions of marital unhappiness, the conception of Lucas. She even layered on justifications: his silence, his supposed guilt, his intent to provide for his son. But her tale was fragile. When I pressed for details, room numbers, dates, specifics of Adam's supposed habits, she stumbled. Her answers grew vague, contradictory. Finally, her irritation broke through. Why does any of this matter? The point is, Lucas is Adam's son, and the will proves it. Actually, I said quietly, sliding the first document onto the table, neither claim is true. She leaned forward, confusion flashing in her eyes. I pointed to the medical record. 2 years before Lucas was conceived, Adam underwent surgery, a vasectomy, confirmed by follow-up tests. It was medically impossible for him to father a child. Her face drained of color. She flipped through the papers, her fingers trembling. These could be faked. They're not, I replied, and his doctor is prepared to testify. But that's not all. I laid down Adam's legitimate will, notarized and sealed. This is the only valid will Adam ever signed. It leaves everything to me. There is no mention of Lucas. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I pressed on, my voice calm but relentless. The document you presented was a forgery, a poor one. Forging a will is a felony, Cassandra, punishable by prison time. I placed the rest of the evidence in front of her. Adam's journal documenting her advances, the damning text messages with Jenna Frank's report outlining her debts, the eviction notice, the truth about Tyler. Piece by piece, I dismantled her illusion until nothing was left but her trembling hands and the silence of a woman cornered. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't the crocodile tears I had grown used to. They were raw, heavy sobs that shook her shoulders. I didn't know what else to do, she gasped. I'm going to lose everything. Lucas and I will be homeless. Tyler left us the bills, keep piling up. I thought if I could just get part of the house. Her voice broke into anger. You have everything, Bridget. The house, the business, the perfect life. And me, I'm drowning. I can't breathe under all of it. Her words hit me like stones, and for a moment I saw past the betrayal into the truth of her desperation. But then I remembered the cruelty of her plan, the way she had stood in front of our family and smeared Adam's memory. Compassion flickered, but it did not erase the rage. You decided to solve your problems, I said, my voice hard, by destroying Adam's reputation and my marriage. You stood in front of our parents, in front of me, and lied. Her tears blurred her mascara into streaks down her cheeks. I know, she whispered. I know. I leaned closer, my tone steady as steel. Here's what will happen. You will confess. To everyone. You will admit you lied about the affair, about the will, about everything. You will apologize to me and to Adam's memory. And then maybe we can discuss how to move forward. But if you refuse, I will press charges. And you know I have the evidence to end this in court. She stared at me, broken. If I confess, we'll still be evicted. Lucas and I will have nowhere to go. I let the silence hang heavy before I answered. You're right. Lucas doesn't deserve to suffer for your mistakes. That's why, if you agree to full honesty and accountability, I'll help him. Not you, Cassandra, him. A trust fund for his medical care, his education. I'll help find stable housing. But there will be conditions. Therapy, financial counseling, employment. And if you break those conditions, the support ends. She looked at me as though I were speaking a language she had never heard. Why would you do that after everything I did? I felt Adam's letter heavy in my heart. Not for you, I said. For Lucas. And because Adam would want me to protect his nephew, even if that nephew's mother tried to destroy his name. The following weekend, I gathered my family for dinner at my house. I had insisted on it, no excuses, no delays. My parents arrived first, my mother clutching a casserole dish like it was a shield. Her eyes darted nervously as she set it on the counter. I don't know what this is about, she murmured, but Cassandra said you were forcing her to some sort of family meeting. She sounded upset. Just wait, I said, pouring her a glass of wine. My voice was steady, though my hands trembled slightly. It needs to be said in front of everyone. By 7 o'clock, we were all seated at the table, my parents, myself, and Cassandra, without Lucas. A small recorder sat in the middle, as advised by James. The air was thick, strained with the weight of unspoken dread. I looked directly at Cassandra. Go ahead. She shifted uncomfortably, her confidence gone. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I lied, she said. Lucas isn't Adam's son. Adam and I never had an affair. The will I showed at the party, it was forged. The words hung in the air, heavy as stones dropped in still water. My parents froze, eyes wide. My father leaned forward, his voice hard. Why would you do something like that? Do you have any idea what you put your sister through? What you did to Adam's memory? Cassandra's eyes brimmed with tears as she spoke. She told them everything, the debts, the eviction notice, Tyler's abandonment. Her words spilled out raw and unvarnished. For once, there was no charm, no manipulation, just the naked desperation of a woman who had hit rock bottom. Oh, honey! My mother gasped when she finished, her face softening into sympathy. Why didn't you just come to us for help? You didn't need to invent such terrible lies. Cassandra's laugh was sharp, bitter. Would you have given me $400,000? Because that's what I would have gotten if my plan had worked. Half the value of Bridget's house. My father's jaw tightened. Of course we couldn't give you that kind of money. But we could have helped with rent, at least temporarily. Instead, you chose fraud, against your own sister, while she was grieving. I know it was wrong, Cassandra admitted. Bridget's already made that clear. She has enough evidence to send me to jail if she wants. My mother turned to me, her face etched with alarm. You wouldn't do that to your sister, would you, Bridget? Something inside me snapped at her words. Even now, after everything, my mother's first instinct was to shield Cassandra. I could, I said firmly. Forgery, fraud, these are felonies. I would be well within my rights. And if it weren't for Lucas, I would. The room went silent. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father shifted in his chair, his gaze uncertain. I pressed on, my voice rising with years of pent-up frustration. I'm family too. Your daughter. the one who just lost her husband, the one who had to stand there while her sister accused him of infidelity in front of everyone. Where was your concern for me, for Adam? They had no answer. Then, to my surprise, Cassandra spoke. Her voice was low but steady. She's right. You've always made excuses for me, Mom. Dad, you bailed me out, covered for me, turned a blind eye. It didn't help me. It just made me worse. I thought I could do whatever I wanted. And now, here we are. My parents sat stunned as if they were hearing the truth for the first time. For once, Cassandra wasn't hiding behind lies. She was admitting in front of all of us who she really was. So what happens now? My father asked, finally, his voice weary. Is Cassandra going to jail? No, I said. I've decided not to press charges under conditions. I laid out the agreement James and I had drafted: Cassandra's full public confession therapy, financial counseling, stable employment, and the establishment of a trust fund for Lucas. If she broke any part of the agreement, the support would end, and I would have no choice but to pursue legal action. My father nodded slowly. That's more than fair, especially after what she did. Cassandra bowed her head. It's more than I deserve. My mother exhaled sharply, relief softening her features. Then this is all working out for the best. Cassandra's confessed Bridget is helping with Lucas, and we can move past this ugly business. I shook my head, my voice cutting through her optimism. No, we can't just pretend this never happened. Trust has been broken. Healing will take time, if it happens at all. And there will be boundaries from now on. Real ones. No more excuses, no more bailouts. If Cassandra stumbles, she'll face her own consequences. My father nodded again, more firmly this time. My mother looked stricken but said nothing. When the evening ended, my parents left quietly, their faces heavy with the weight of a family cracked open. Cassandra lingered at the door. She turned to me, her eyes tired, her voice soft. I'm sorry, she whispered, not just for the will or the lies, but for everything, the jealousy, the years of pushing you away, for not being the sister you deserved. I met her gaze, searching for sincerity. I hope therapy helps you understand why you made these choices, I said. Because Lucas deserves a mother who is healthy and honest. Do I forgive you? I don't know, but for his sake I'm willing to try. Her shoulders sagged with something that looked like relief. Thank you, she whispered, and then she was gone. 1 year after Adam's death, I stood in our garden watching the daffodils bloom. Adam had planted them the fall before he died, his hands covered in dirt as he smiled at me over the flower beds. He never lived to see them rise yet. Here they were, bright, resilient, defiant against the long winter. Just like me. So much had changed in a year. The trust fund I set up for Lucas was already helping with his medical needs. His heart condition, once a looming shadow, was stabilizing. He was growing into a curious, cheerful toddler, and every time I held him, I felt a mix of joy and sorrow. Joy for the life blooming in him. Sorrow for the shadow of betrayal that had nearly swallowed us whole. Cassandra surprised me. She kept her word. Therapy peeled back layers of her jealousy, her reckless need to compete, her self-sabotage. She found steady work as an office manager at a dental clinic, finally standing on her own feet. We weren't close, not anymore, maybe not ever, but we were civil, cordial, bound by Lucas and by the fragile thread of honesty that had never existed between us before. My parents struggled most with the new boundaries. My mother especially mourned the illusion of sisterly closeness she had clung to all these years. But slowly, even she began to accept reality. She learned to support Cassandra without enabling her. My father grew quieter, more reflective. Once he hugged me after dinner and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Bridget. Adam would be too." Those words carried me through the nights when the bed still felt too big, too cold. And as for me, I kept breathing, one day at a time. I joined a grief support group where strangers became companions on this long, crooked road. Together we shared stories of loss and flickers of hope, reminding each other that healing wasn't linear, but possible. 3 months after confronting Cassandra, I started the Adam Preston Foundation for Legal Education. Scholarships for underprivileged students who dreamed of becoming lawyers. Adam's legacy lived on through every young life that walked into a courtroom armed with integrity and ambition. It gave me purpose. It gave me him still. Old friends stepped up in ways I never expected. Adam's colleagues invited me to dinners so I wouldn't eat alone. My college roommate flew in monthly just to sit beside me on the couch with takeout and bad movies. And then there was Michael. I met him at a fundraiser 6 months after Adam's death. A professor of ethics with kind eyes and a quiet humor that didn't demand anything of me. We started with coffee, then dinner. It was different from what I had with Adam, as it should be. Michael understood that Adam would always be part of me, that loving again didn't mean erasing the past. We took things slow, cautious but hopeful, and for the first time in months I felt something stir in me that wasn't grief. Standing in the garden that spring morning, the air smelled of earth and possibility. I thought of Adam's letter, his foresight, his love that reached across time to shield me even when he was gone. I thought of Cassandra's tears, her broken confession, and the slow work of rebuilding boundaries. I thought of Lucas laughing in the park, unaware of the storm that almost defined his childhood. I had learned that family isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about honesty, boundaries, protection. And sometimes it's about walking away from those who hurt you, even if they share your blood. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and compassion doesn't mean surrender. Grief taught me that love doesn't die. It changes shape, it moves with you, it anchors you even when the person is gone. Adam prepared me to face the storm, but in surviving it, I discovered my own strength. So here's what I'll leave you with. Protect yourself. Protect your heart with both boundaries and proof, because sometimes the people you expect to guard you are the very ones who can wound you most. And remember, healing isn't a straight line. It's a series of seasons, some barren, some blooming, but always moving, always possible. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to draw painful boundaries with someone you loved? How did you survive it? Your stories matter. They remind us we are not alone.